beliefs based on torture and blood and crucifixion. Instead, he radiated the philosophies of Satanism, proclaiming, "I believe in freedom, not God." What is he saying? The mantra of Aleister Crowley. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Is not that the message of Hollywood? Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Really? Is there anything that Hollywood has not taught? Is there anything that Hollywood is? I'm not going to get into it. I keep wanting to go to content because it's so stinking wicked. But think about it this way: homosexuality, fornication, bestiality, rape, murder, incest. Is there anything they haven't taught? Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Out of chaos comes order. A new order.
It was unplanned when Oprah publicly denounced her belief in God on national television. Many people turned away from God that day. Oprah production company is Harpo. Harpo is Oprah spelled backwards. Now you may say, what they got to do with anything? Follow me. Oprah also created a new cable television network, and the acronym for the Oprah Winfrey Network is OWN. You already know what that means, but did you know that backwards it's read NWO, as in New World Order? Now you say, now, Pastor, where you going with this? Well, Aleister Crowley, a 20th century Satanist, wrote a book manual on magic. And page 481 through 482, he advised, think backwards, write backwards, speak backwards, walk backwards are the ways to get into the other world. You may say, Pastor, what does this have to do with Oprah? What does a Satanist have any connection with Miss Oprah Winfrey? Well, let's look at some hand gestures for a minute. Let's look at some hand gestures that she is involved in, that we can understand. In this photo, it reveals some hand gestures. Alice Walker and Oprah Winfrey had symbols, hand symbols, represent Earth Mother Goddess, the consort of Lucifer, the woman figure whose sign is the downward pointing triangle, reigned side by side with Satan over the Illuminati and its minions, the water symbol. Let's look at some more hand gestures here. So you say, Pastor, it's just she just do that, but she's been doing this for a very, very long time. And this is not a coincidence that so many of these entertainers are actually doing this. Now remember, you see what they want you to see, and they are only giving reference to the brotherhood and those that are a part of this satanic new age movement. We're going to get in a little bit more about this type hand gesture, but I want to show you a couple other entertainers that do the very same thing, and they're representing this water goddess. In this image, you see Oprah and Jay-Z doing the double A, elemental grade signs, water and fire. Water is the goddess Ormuth, and fire the goddess Tham-Eish-Neith. I may have said that wrong, but who cares? Or the Illuminati pyramid.
Is there anything they haven't taught? Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Out of chaos comes order. A new order.
Have you heard about the largest church in the world? The first service was March 3, 2008, with an attendance of over 300,000. The attendance is now over 2 million, and they conducted the first ever mass trance on March 17, 2008. What do they teach? Who you are requires no belief. Heaven is not a location, but refers to the inner realm of consciousness.
Sensory, being a multisensory personality, and recognizing that what your five senses could see was just a part of what it meant to be a human being. That there was so much more to what we see beyond what we can see and beneath what we can see, and that all things carry a physical energy and also a metaphysical energy, that which is beyond what we can see or know, and that all substance holds that. First time I read that, something about that resonated deeply with me because it felt like the truth. That in all things there is a level of consciousness. In all beings there's a level of consciousness or unconsciousness for a lot of beings also. And that carries its own energy, and that there is a vibration to everything. That there is a frequency, a vibration, and energy to everything in existence. And that somehow all of that energy, frequency, vibrational stuff is connected. First time I read that, I thought, I felt that before. I just didn't have the language to articulate it.
The Leader's website teaches these lessons. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. My holiness is my salvation. My salvation comes from me. Let me remember that there is no sin. Heard of this church? Or maybe its leader?
From our point of view, it really makes no difference whether you pray to a Father God, or to a Mother Goddess, or to an entire gaggle of gods and goddesses. You're still wishing for their acceptance. The Satanist, the black magician, does not seek that kind of submergence of the self. We do not seek to have our decisions and our morality approved or validated by any higher God or being. We take responsibility unto ourselves.
Deciding a philosophy you're going to live by that puts you in charge, not an expert.
Live life at the peak as you define it, not by anybody else's standards. Doing what I want, when I want, where I want, with whomever I want, as much as I want, in a way that hopefully also benefits other people simultaneously. That to me is ultimate freedom, that's success.
Well, I've been an admirer of Aleister Crowley. I think that I'm carrying on much of the work that he started over 100 years ago, and I think the 60s themselves. You know, Crowley said he was in favor of finding your own self and do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law under love. It was a very powerful statement.
Between psychiatry and religion that was untapped, and no religion had ever been based on man's carnal needs or his fleshly pursuits. All religions are based on abstinence rather than indulgence, and all religions therefore have to be based on fear. Well, we don't feel that fear is necessary to base a religion on. We don't feel that fear is necessary to base a religion on.
And we hope by the end of the next 2 hours, you all will be on your way to living without fear, fearlessly. And the man who will help us bring on the heat, bring on the heat, bring on the heat, Master Life Coach Tony Robbins is here.
They do it to put demonic influence in your life.
They'll say anything to convert you.
It is fear that keeps us separated, because fear is false evidence appearing real. It's an acronym.
Well, we don't feel that fear is necessary to base a religion on.
The Satanist, the black magician, we do not seek to have our decisions and our morality approved or validated by any higher God or being. We take responsibility unto ourselves.
And we hope by the end of the next 2 hours, you all will be on your way to living without fear, fearlessly.
are seizing control of the media. We have scientists working for us. We have people in every field, intelligent, competent, ambitious people who have no guilt, who have no shame, and who have removed the filthiness of the Judeo-Christian ethic from their entire lifestyle. And when that happens, the power that is released from that, it's going to change the world.
In Crowley's book Magic, which he spelled with his characteristic K at the end, it states, quote, Crowley's magic is a doctrine and a technique for establishing contact with extraterrestrial entities, spirits, demons. The whole of Crowley's doctrine is based on the Book of the Law, in which the future of humanity, the establishment on earth of a new order, is outlined.
All these new challenges are bringing together about the biggest restructuring we have ever seen, not just of the global economy, but of the global order as a whole.
These are very special moments. Minds are more open to change. The goal should be to devise a system of global financial governance.
Well, we don't feel that fear is necessary to base a religion on.
The Satanist, the black magician, we do not seek to have our decisions and our morality approved or validated by any higher God or being. We take responsibility unto ourselves.
And we hope by the end of the next 2 hours, you all will be on your way to living without fear, fearlessly.
Today, she has turned her millions of adoring fans over to New Age doctrine.
The consciousness in which the world appears, is seen.
So you believe what happens to us at death when the body dies? You don't have a belief.
I don't give it any thought.
You don't. God, in the essence of all consciousness, isn't something to believe. God is.
Yes.
God is. And God is a feeling experience, not a believing experience.
That's
What is your definition of God?
God is the highest place within each and every one of us. It's our divine self.
The source of you. The source, that's what I've experienced.
I love that.
The source of you.
I define God as an energy, a spiritual energy. It has no denomination. It has no judgments. It has an energy that when we're connected to it, we know why we're here and what we're here to do. And to know that I'm one with something greater, an energy, a force greater than myself.
An all-encompassing love that is the source of all, the reality of all, and the being through which I am.
What is your definition of God?
All that is, everything, everything. Breath, life, everything. I can't even, just get Webster's dictionary and throw it on the floor.
It's
everything. Everything.
And God is in everything.
God is everything. Not only in, is everything.
I don't have a definition of God because I've never really understood that word.
The theology of cosmic humanism is pantheism, the idea that everything is God and God is everything. The word pantheism comes from two Greek words, pan, meaning all, and theos, meaning God. Everything is God.
The theology of cosmic humanism is what is termed pantheism. And pantheism is the belief that everything is God and God is everything. And this cashes out in their practice in terms of reverencing everything, all of life and non-life, whether things are human or non-human. Everything is divine.
The popular New Age spokesperson, Deepak Chopra, explains God turns out to be the only thing that is real, and the whole universe, despite its immensity and solidity, is a projection of God's nature. Because all is one, and this one is God, humans should seek God consciousness. That is, they must get in touch with the cosmic energy force that is divine. Shirley MacLaine writes, "You each need to become masters of your own souls, which is to say, the realization of yourselves as God."
New Age does not actually believe that we are potential gods, but that we are gods, that we are actually one with God. God is in us, and we are God. It's just that we have not attained to that level of consciousness or self-awareness to recognize that we are God. And the whole purpose of the various disciplines that New Age will put out, whether it's yoga in its various forms or meditation, etc., are all supposed to lead to this higher state of consciousness, of self-realization, which comes out to be recognizing or realizing that you are, in fact, God.
New Agers do not believe that this cosmic energy they call God is a personal being distinct from creation. Rather, God is an impersonal force or power that produces and pervades everything.
Everything in this universe is in fact energy. An ultimate form of energy is consciousness, and that is God, and that is in you, and you need to experience your oneness with everything. That's really pantheism.
As Deepak Chopra asserts, God, it turns out, isn't a person, God is a process. I see no difference between myself and God. When I pray, I find that I'm praying to myself. God is not separate from us. We are God. This is why so few New Agers actually pray. Rather, they meditate. Prayer becomes unnecessary, writes Chopra. Finally, in the state of unity consciousness, there is no need for prayer. Your every thought comes from the soul. Therefore, you would only be praying to yourself.
And he must, as a Satanist, knowing this, realizing what his human potential is, eventually, and here is one of the essential points of Satanism, attain his own Godhead in accordance with his own potential. Therefore, each man, each woman is a god or goddess in Satanism.
Answers to your problems are in yourself and not in a god or a religion.
What does it mean to whip your hair back and forth?
It means like basically it's the new I'm me.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically like I'm me. I'm doing what I want to do.
Alan Manson noted the universality of this satanic ethic when he observed, "The idea of Antichrist is an unspoken knowledge that every person has. It's just the acceptance of yourself as a powerful being who can make their own decisions. It's not someone with a 666 on their head." And Satanism is about worshiping yourself because you are responsible for your own good and evil.
What would you define being a Satanist as?
Worship of themselves. You're worshiping yourself when you worship Satan.
Aleister Crowley stated it this way in his infamous Book of the Law: "Every man and every woman is a star or a god." And as we saw earlier, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Snake that giveth knowledge," the Spirit said, "to worship me take wine and strange drugs, whereof I will tell my prophet." Falling on precisely the wrong side of the Bible's account concerning the fall of man and Satan's role, this snake spirit begins the revelation by telling man that he is a god, that reality is essentially an illusion, sin a myth, and that ethically there's no greater commandment than the law of Thelema, Greek for will, as famously stated in the 40th verse of chapter 1. "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law."
We do what we want to do when we want to do it.
And just what is this core principle by which most people live? Well, in a nutshell, do what you want.
And in America, Satanism is sensationalized and kind of misunderstood, and people associate it with worshiping the devil and things like that. But it's really a philosophy about individuality and self-preservation. It's about, being your own God.
What is wrong and right? And in our case, we are making up our reality. We decide what's right and wrong. You are letting the Bible or Jesus Christ or whatever God may be
even
decide.
Common sense. I mean, even leaving God out of it to suggest that you can make up your own reality. My goodness, that's what they did in Tiananmen Square. That's what they did in Germany in 1933. I mean,
and that's what they're doing in America.
These are
I want to represent magic, right? That you're in a universe and 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 only equals 4 if you accept that 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 is going to be what I want it to be. You know, and there's a redemptive power that making a choice has, you know, rather than feeling like you're at effect to all the things that are happening. Make a choice. Like, you just decide what it's going to be, who you're going to be, how you're going to do it. Just decide. And then from that point, the universe is going to get out your way. It's like, it's water. It wants to move and go around stuff, you know. So for me, I want to represent possibilities. I want to represent the idea that you really can make what you want. One of my favorite books is The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho. And I just believe that. I believe that I can create whatever I want to create.
So what is New Age spirituality? New Age is a term applied to a range of spiritual or religious beliefs and practices that developed in Western nations during the 1970s. Precise scholarly definitions of the New Age differ in their emphasis. Although ethnically often considered to be religious, those involved in it typically prefer the designation of spiritual and rarely use the term New Age themselves. Many scholars of the subject refer to it as the New Age movement, although others contest this term and suggest that it is better seen as a zeitgeist. As a form of Western esotericism, the New Age drew heavily upon a number of older esoteric traditions, in particular those that emerged from the occultist current that developed in the 18th century.
It's very difficult to explain because, as you know, it brings in Eastern religions, Western religions, metaphysics, so it's very eclectic. It's basically a mishmash of many, many different religious thinking. There is no authoritative doctrine. There's no authoritative book. There's many, many authors. There's no authoritative figure. Again, a lot of people chiming in, and there's this long menu. You can pick from whatever you like. Now, that said, there is 3 principles that do seem to stream through all of them. First one is pantheism, the second one is karma, and the third one is self-actualization. What are these? Let's start with pantheism. Pantheism is this idea that everything is God, that we are part of God, that this chair is part of God, that we are all gods. A couple problems with that. The first one is, if in fact everything is God, then God is evil, because we know there's a lot of evil in the world. They explain this away by saying that evil is just an illusion. Of course, tell that to the woman who just lost her 9-year-old daughter to the shooting in Arizona. It is not just illusion, it is a real category, and we know that biblically. Next, experientially. Am I God? Do I have the qualities of God? I can't even create anything. I can rearrange atoms, but I don't have the ability to create anything. Secondly, I have very little control over things. I can't control the pimple on my face. My 10-year-old daughter, I have very little control over her. So this idea that we are gods experientially just doesn't make sense. Number 2 is the idea of karma. Let me just mention a couple things about that. There's 6 billion people in the world today. 20 years ago, there was 5 billion people in the world. What are you working off in your first life? In other words, this is the idea that we are trying to be a better and work off our bad karma. On your first life, what are you working off? I don't know. They can't answer that question. It just doesn't make sense. And then there's this question of, how much do I owe? If I'm in this cycle of karma, birth and rebirth, when I go to my bank to check my statement, they tell me how much I owe the bank and what my interest is. In this particular case, we have no idea where we stand at any given time. So it's problematic. Finally, self-actualization. That is this idea that my morals, my reality, my truth is within, not without. I look internally for truth. Now, Western tradition, morality has always been something outside that restrains our inclinations, our self-destruction. That morals are outside and we follow those morals and it restrains us.
Absolute truth.
Correct. In this particular case, I can invent my own truth. What happens when you invent your own truth? What any logical person would think, it leads you down the path of self-gratification and self-destruction. So a couple of issues there, a couple of problems with it. Now, it's called New Age, but it really is an old hoax. Let me read from Genesis chapter 3, verse 4. Then the serpent said to the woman, "You will not surely die, for God knows that in the day you eat, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." There's a New Age movement right there. Old Testament, been around for centuries. There's nothing new about it. It's an old deception.